Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I want to show you how I came up with a cover for my current comic I've worked on this past few weeks. I found this pretty simple. If you know the story you've written and drawn, then it will be easy to convey the main or overall story through one image, right? Well, I'd say there's a few things to keep in mind when creating the final cover. I'm only an amateur at this point, but if there is anything crucial that I may have glossed over, then let me know in the comments. When I wrote this short story, I was mainly focused on the characters with a brief establishing scene to show that it is set in a world where magic exists. But characters remain the focus throughout. It's not strictly for young adults, I would say, but if you can identify factors like age, gender, or even economic status, that would be an easy place to start. And if you identified any familiar tropes, let's say of a shonen manga, then you would want to target the audience that consumes that type of content. My story, Sage Advice, has a young man and a mentor character, but the plot revolves around the former. I would predominantly market this to kids aged 12 and up, and I honestly don't mind if they were younger because it might scare them a little. Well, at least that's my thinking behind it. So when we begin the process of making our cover, we want to look at what type of tone we need to communicate. I don't want to spoil my story a lot in this video, admittedly, but we know all stories have a type of conflict that creates the mood of a story. An example would be The Dark Knight Returns, in that the use of black silhouette is very dramatic and striking and creates an overall impression to the reader. Of course, if you're stuck, go for something that is visually appealing and follows the example of the golden ratio. I didn't really come up with the fully realized version until I began to take pieces of thumbnails I liked and created a montage image, which to me has the depth and mystery and greatly hints at the conflict present in the story. Next, you will want to decide what the format of it will be. Comics in Western countries, especially of the big two, Marvel and DC, are often printed in issues and in standard comic size, which is 11 by 17 inch. This would give you a base set of measurements and set amount of bleed. That's a line where your artwork cuts off, just over the margin. Next, if you are happy with the artwork and placement of your title, you should probably look into a type style. A strong title can convey things about your story through your typeface alone. I chose to use Papyrus because it had that quill pen dipped in ink look that gave a flavour of the world the story takes place in, say the opposite of modern but still civilized. As for the artwork, honestly, there could have been a more cohesive design than the one I stuck with, but I still think the title is an appropriate size. If you are just dipping your toes in comics, I say limit the amount of copies sent to printers. That way you don't have to pour lots of money into printing costs. Also, things like wraparound covers exist, which is the cover that continues on the back of the comic, with the title being on the right, to put simply. So this is the finished result, and I'm more ecstatic about it, seeing it in my own two hands. I'm not really sponsoring them in this video, but saying that I did use Kablam Publishing for this book because they could at least print like 16 pages, which, interesting enough, I didn't factor in the cover interior. This had the unintended side effect of removing the introductory page with the credits, but overall it hasn't affected the whole story. It's still intact. The only drawback I would say is the quite expensive printing costs, being that it is an overseas company. In fact, it's based in Oregon and Florida, if you can believe it. This will ultimately factor into the pricing of my book. My advice would be, if you live in Australia, which I do, go with Comics on Demand. Again, I'm not sponsoring either of them, saying that I had nothing really bad to say about this overall. I think it's really damn impressive, to be honest. They fit the bill. Nice. Of course, all I said in this video can apply to any way of printing commercial comics. It's entirely different, say, for zines and, printing a full-fledged, binder book. But I found learning about this is a lot of fun, and Thank you guys for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.